Zed is one of the most misunderstood champions in the game. He looks explosive, but most players struggle to win consistently on him. Not because he's weak, but because of how he's played. Zed isn't about forcing fights or chasing highlights. He wins games through patience, pressure, and timing. In this guide, I'll show you how to play Zed with control, from laning to teamfights to side lanes, so he actually feels consistent in solo queue. Let's get into it. Let's quickly lock in what Zed brings to the table. Zed excels at deleting squishy targets while also dominating 1v1s. His kit lets him assassinate carries, threaten solo kills, and win duels when enemies misstep or waste cooldowns. With Living Shadow and Deathmark, Zed can instantly close distance, cross terrain, and reposition mid-fight, letting him gap close aggressively, dodge key abilities, then escape after committing. In side lanes, Zed applies constant pressure. He clears waves quickly, threatens solo kills, takes towers efficiently, and forces multiple enemies to respond. Zed thrives in chaotic fights. Shadow swaps, jukes, and delayed damage let him waste enemy time, bait cooldowns, and win situations that look unwinnable in the right hands. Zed doesn't rely on mana, allowing him to trade more often, stay in lane longer, and maintain pressure without being forced into early resets. That said, there are clear situations where he can get punished. Zed is very fragile and must commit at close range, making mistakes extremely punishing. Zed's damage depends on landing Qs. Missing them heavily reduces kill pressure and makes commits risky. Heavy armor stacking drastically reduces Zed's impact, making frontline targets inefficient and difficult to deal with. Deathmark creates a known return point, allowing enemies to precast CC, burst, or use defensive tools. Zed requires precise mechanics and decision making. Consistency takes time to develop. With that in mind, let's break down his abilities and how you actually turn these strengths into wins. This passive is what turns Zed's trades and all-ins into guaranteed finishes. Zed deals bonus damage to low health enemies, helping him secure kills and clean up fights. The mistake is over-focusing on abilities and ignoring auto attacks when targets are already low. Weave in auto attacks into trades, especially before or during Deathmark, since passive damage is guaranteed and often more reliable than landing extra skill shots. This ability is what turns Zed from a threat into an actual kill pressure champion. Zed throws shurikens in a line, dealing high damage, especially when enemies are hit by multiple shurikens. The mistake is throwing Q without timing or angle, letting it hit minions first, or firing when enemies are free to dodge. Time Q when enemies step up to last hit or after you've slowed them with WE, and aim to land double shurikens without minions in the way. Zed's Q is one of the most reliable ways for a melee champion to last hit safely in lane. Q makes a sound when it connects. If you hear it, someone is hiding in the brush. This ability defines Zed, his mobility, his outplays, and his entire threat range. Zed throws a shadow forward that mimics his abilities and allows him to swap positions. The mistake is using W without landing a trade. Early cooldowns are long, and when W is down, Zed loses both escape safety and kill pressure. Be deliberate with W. Use it to secure a clean trade or setup, and always respect the window where you're vulnerable after casting it. Cast W out of base for a faster lane return. It'll be off cooldown before you get back. W gives vision when thrown into brushes or fog of war, letting you safely check Baron or Dragon without face checking and decide if you can go in. Landing abilities from both you and your shadow refunds energy, letting you trade more often and keep pressure without running out of resources. This ability is what makes Zed's combos reliable instead of coin flip. Zed and his shadows slash nearby enemies, dealing damage and applying a slow when hit by a shadow. The mistake is using E without shadow positioning, reducing its damage and utility. Land E through shadow first. The slow makes landing follow-up Qs significantly easier. Don't think of E as a single target. It's low cost AoE damage and a slow, making it great for wave clear and hitting multiple enemies when they're grouped. This ability decides whether Zed becomes one of the deadliest single target assassins in the game, or gets instantly punished. Zed becomes untargetable, marks an enemy, then reappears to deal burst damage based on damage dealt during the mark. The mistake is ulting without tracking crowd control or defensive tools like Flash or Zhonya's, often turns a kill into a death. Use R to dodge key abilities first. Timing the cast correctly is often more important than raw damage. After ulting, don't rush Q. Many enemies sidestep immediately, so use auto attacks first while they dodge, then throw Q when their movement is predictable. Always track where your deathmark shadow is. Once you ult, it becomes your primary escape tool, especially if the enemy flashes or reinforcements arrive. You don't have to kill with R. Force flash or key cooldowns is often enough, and you can safely return to your shadow afterwards. Ulting targets over walls gives you a built-in escape. Immobile champions often can't follow you once you snap back. Max Q for damage and safe lane control. Max E second for lower cooldowns, stronger slows and wave clear. Max W last since it's mainly utility. Level R whenever available. This is one of Zed's longest range threat tools and is far more important than it looks. WQ. This gives Zed surprising reach for a melee champion. High level players use W for vision under tower or in fog, then snipe recalls or finish low health targets with Q from long range without committing. Because Q is a very skinny skill shot, this takes practice, but it's extremely effective when enemies are standing still or moving predictably. This is Zed's most important combo in lane and often decides whether you win trades or secure kills. WEQ. You throw W first, use E to apply the slow, then land Q while the target is slowed, dramatically increasing hit consistency. If the trade goes well or the enemy is low, you can swap to your shadow and continue with autos to extend pressure or finish the kill. The slow only applies when E hits through your shadow, so don't rush the swap. Land the slow first, then commit. This is Zed's highest damage combo and your primary assassination pattern. R, W, E, Q, autos, then R. You want to stack damage during deathmark by landing abilities from both you and your shadow, ideally hitting multiple Qs and Es before the mark pops. 2 clean Qs is usually enough for squishies, but perfect execution with 3 Qs can instantly delete most targets. Don't rush Q immediately, use autos while enemies sidestep, then throw Q when their movement becomes predictable. Use this combo when enemies are just out of range and you need to close distance first. W into W, R, E, Q, autos, then R. You're trading some damage for access to otherwise unreachable targets. This is best used to finish low targets or force summoners rather than for maximum burst. Since W is used for gap closing, don't rely on it for damage. Focus on clean positioning, autos, and a safe exit. This combo is used to avoid crowd control and dangerous abilities when committing with deathmark. WRW. Enemies expect you to reappear behind them after R, so they'll often pre-aim CC or burst at that spot. Instantly swapping to W dodges it entirely. Once key abilities are baited or missed, you can safely continue the fight with Q, E, and autos. These are your core combos. Lock them in. Zed has 3 viable keystones, but we're going to anchor everything around Electrocute first, since it's the most consistent and dominant option for most players. Electrocute is Zed's best rune for lane dominance and burst. It rewards clean trades, early kills, and taking over the game. This is the best choice for climbing, especially below Diamond, where you can reliably pressure lane and snowball. Conqueror is taken into tankier teams or longer fights, where Zed needs sustained damage instead of one-shot burst. First Strike is for lanes you can't reliably dominate. It lets Zed scale faster, earn extra gold, and play more for mid to late game power spikes. Take this when all-ins aren't realistic and you need value without committing early. Doran's shield is your default in most games. It's absurdly strong on Zed. If you play with patience, this start lets you outlast most mages. Dodge a few spells, let them burn mana, and you'll still be healing while they're forced to back. Longsword plus 3 pots is for kill pressure. Take this when you want to trade aggressively and look for early all-ins, especially into poke matchups you're confident dodging. Longsword plus refillable is for low pressure lanes. It's extremely gold efficient, but only take it when you know you won't get chipped down early. Start Eclipse. It's disgusting on Zed right now. People underestimate the shield, and that mistake gets them killed. Ionian boots are your default. Ability haste and summoner cooldowns are perfect for Zed's tempo and playstyle. Merc treads are situational. Take these into heavy AP or crowd control when survivability matters more than raw damage. Voltaic Cyclo Sword is where Zed's picks become consistent. Use the empowered auto slow to lock targets in place, then follow with Q. It massively increases your hit rate and turns near misses into guaranteed damage. Serelda's Grudge makes your damage more reliable. Once armor comes online, this is mandatory. The penetration and slow ensure targets can't just walk away from your combo. Edge of Night against heavy CC or pick comps. This forces enemies to waste abilities just to touch you, making engages far safer. Axiom Arc when you're snowballing. Lower cooldown means more pressure, more picks, and faster tempo. Black Cleaver into armor stacking tanks. If they're stacking armor, this keeps your damage relevant. Bastion Breaker is a situational pickup when you see a clear split pushing angle, letting you shred structures fast and turn side lane pressure into real map control. Spear of Sojourn shines in late game teamfights where extended fights and takedown resets let you chain abilities relentlessly with massive cooldown reduction. Flash is mandatory. It's essential for escapes, gap closing, outplays, and extending your kill range. Never drop it. Ignite is your default second spell. Take this in lanes where you have pressure and want kills. I'd recommend Ignite in most games, especially when learning Zed, because it teaches you his damage limits and lets you snowball harder. Teleport is a safer option. Take TP into difficult lanes, and when you want more side lane pressure and the ability to join fights across the map without forcing risky all-ins. Before minions spawn, don't level an ability immediately. If an invade happens or you're about to get collapsed on, you can instantly level W and escape, often saving flash. Only level when you need it. This is a small habit, but over hundreds of games, it saves summoners and deaths. Early lane on Zed isn't about winning trades, it's about control and patience. Against most ranged champions, use Q primarily to last hit, not to poke. Stand slightly back, keep your health high. Let the wave come towards you naturally. Missing ACS is fine. Losing half your HP before level 3 is not. Your goal here is stability, not pressure. Once you have Q, W, and E, the lane opens up. This doesn't mean you force trades, it just means you threaten them. Use W sparingly, either to thin waves safely or to check how your opponent reacts. Within 2 or 3 W casts, you should know how they dodge. You're gathering information, not forcing kills. Zed feels strongest when the wave is slightly towards your side or neutral in the middle. Avoid hard shoving early unless you're resetting or roaming. A calm, close wave to your tower gives you safer farming, better W angles, and more room to punish mistakes later when you commit and follow W. Most Zed deaths happens because players push without a plan. When you're ganked, your W is your lifeline. Use it to juke, reposition, or blink over walls, not to panic trade. Most junglers will deliberately wait for your W to go on cooldown before committing. If your W is down, play respectfully. If it's up, you have options. One of Zed's biggest strengths is what happens when you're not on screen. After clearing a wave, hover river or disappearing into fog forces mid laners to spam ping their team. Even if you don't roam, that uncertainty creates pressure. People back off, side laners play scared, junglers hesitate. You don't always need to move, you just need to threaten movement. When you hit level 6, you don't need to kill immediately. Just having Deathmark forces respect, controls space, and makes the enemy hesitate. Use that pressure to deny CS, force bad recalls, and set up future plays. If they play perfectly, that's fine. You're winning through pressure alone. You're no longer limited to your lane at this point. You can threaten your mid opponent, the enemy jungler, even solo targets in side lanes. You don't need perfect conditions, just awareness and timing. If bot tower is already low, look for dives and pressure plays. Even forcing them off the wave can be enough. Take the tower, secure first gold, and reset the map. Zed doesn't need kills to snowball, he just needs space. Once you complete 1 to 2 major items, Zed becomes a real threat. At this point, you should constantly be checking enemy item completions, defensive spikes like Zhonya's and Guardian Angel, flash and defensive summoner availability. You can still aim for high value targets, but you must account for these items. As Zed that ignores Zhonya's timers doesn't outplay, he simply just flips the game. In mid-game, Zed isn't looking for chaos, he's looking for isolated targets. You want side angles, fog of war, enemies walking alone or slightly late. Don't rush engages, let fights start, let cooldowns fly, then enter. Zed wins games by arriving second, not first. You commit when key CC is down, defensive items are unavailable, or the fight has already started. Zed doesn't teamfight like a front-to-back champion. Your job isn't to kill everyone, it's to remove one important target or force the fight into chaos. If you trade yourself for one carry or even 2 key champions, your team will almost always win the fight off that advantage. Don't be afraid to commit if the target matters. Sometimes the correct play is not committing at all. Because Zed has multiple shadows, multiple exits, and tools like Edge of Night, you can often walk towards squishies, force defensive cooldowns, bait hard CC, then disengage safely. If you draw 2 or 3 abilities and live, your team already has the upper hand. In many fights, simply zoning carries away from the fight is more valuable than going all in. A Zed hovering near the backline creates pressure without pressing R. When T-fights aren't working, maybe your team is behind, maybe you're ahead individually, side laning becomes your primary win condition. Zed takes towers quickly and applies constant pressure in side lanes. If the enemy sends one champion, you have kill threat. If they send 2 or more, your team gains freedom elsewhere, objectives, farm, or tempo. Either response creates value. You don't need to force fight or overcommit. Push the side lane, apply pressure, force reactions. Simply existing as a threat in a side lane can swing the game. If straight team fights aren't winning, change how the game is played. Even when you're behind, side laning is still useful. It lets you catch up in farm, avoid forced team fights, look for isolated targets. With W and R available, the Zed is difficult to lock down. Use that mobility to stay safe and patient. This isn't desperation, it's recovery. Late game Zed is less about mechanics and more about decision making. Ask yourself, who can I kill safely? Where is my exit? Is this fight already winning? You still have strong one-shot potential, but enemies will often have defensive tools to deal with you. Look for mistakes, not front-to-back fights. Squishy supports warding alone or ADCs overextending to clear waves. Sometimes the correct play is not going in at all. Just hovering, threatening, and forcing errors. Split pushing can still work late game, but grouping is often more reliable in solo queue, where coordination is limited and teams get caught out easily. If the opportunity appears, Zed can still end games alone. A late game backdoor can win instantly if the enemy looks away. Zed rewards patience more than aggression. If you slow the game down, the openings will come to you. This is one of Zed's cleanest animation cancels. By casting Q and instantly swapping to W, you cancel most of Q's windup, making the Shuriken land much faster and harder to react to. A common use is WE to slow, Q then W instantly, auto to finish. This isn't just for poking, it's a commit tool. Use it when you're ready to go in and finish the kill. Once you get used to it, Zed feels significantly smoother. You don't see this, you feel it. After an auto, cast E instantly. This slightly cancels the end of the auto animation, making your damage come out faster and your trades feel cleaner. It's subtle, but over a game, it saves time and smooths execution. This doesn't add damage, it makes Zed feel instant. Casting E immediately after W hides most of E's animation. This makes your slow and damage feel more instant, especially when engaging or trading in lane. It doesn't change damage, it improves speed and fluidity. This is one of Zed's strongest finish tools. By casting Q and immediately flashing, the Shuriken fires from your new position, letting you close distance and land a near point blank Q. Use this to finish low health targets, catch enemies who think they're out of range, or guarantee kills when a normal Q might miss. It's simple, fast, and extremely reliable when you need the hit to land. Most players use Zed's main trade combo completely wrong. Throwing W directly on top of them makes your Qs easy to dodge. Instead, place W slightly to the left or right of the enemy. Most players instinctively move away from the shadow, not onto it. If your shadow is on the left, they'll drift right, making their movement far more predictable. This subtly forces dodges into your Q, greatly increasing your double Shuriken hit rate without changing the combo. Same WE-Q combo, smarter placement. Stop ulting your final target. Their frontline makes you a backline problem. If a tank or frontline champion is in front of you, R them first, then W to reach the backline and kill a priority target. Once the job is done, you can stay forward if it's safe, or return to your R shadow to disengage. This lets you bypass front lines and still have an exit strategy. If you only use ZR to kill, you're misplaying the champion. It's a guaranteed escape. Ult an enemy, then run away from your R shadow in the opposite direction. Enemies are forced to choose, chase you and you snap back to R, or chase the shadow and you keep running. Either way, R creates a forced decision that often saves your life. Most players don't realize you can control the distance of Zed's W. A short W places the shadow close, perfect for melee range and making it much easier to land double E and double Q. A max range W keeps you safe, ideal for lane trades, poke, or playing against ranged champions. Choosing the right shadow distance makes your damage more reliable and your trades cleaner. This is one of Zed's dirtiest mind game combos. After you R, drop a W near the target. Do your damage, then snap back with R2. Most players think the fight is over, but if you bought enough time or dodged key cooldowns, you can re-enter W2 and finish the kill from an unexpected angle. It's situational, time dependent and risky, but when it works, it completely catches people off guard. This is a positional tactic to make triple shurikens far more reliable when committing. After you R onto a target, your original R shadow is often too far away to help land Q consistently. Instead, R the target, then immediately place W near them. Snap back to your original R, from that position, W back to the target, only now cast Q. This sets up 3 close shuriken sources, U and 2 shadows, making dodging extremely difficult. It doesn't give you extra Qs, it just gives you better angles and closer hitboxes for one decisive cast. Most Zed players massively underestimate how often E can be used in fights. Zed's E cooldown is reduced for every champion hit. In teamfights or clustered skirmishes, good shadow placement lets you use E far more often than most players expect. Good Zeds plan their exit before they hit the tower. Before taking tower plates, pre-place W to a safe location. Order the tower to secure the plate, then snap back to your shadow and recall. Pre-placing W gives you a much longer disengaged distance than using it after, making it safe if anyone shows up and faster to reset. This works throughout the game, clearing a wave, dropping vision, or finishing one last action before recalling. Small habit, huge efficiency. Not all walls are equal. Some can be crossed with W, others can't. Learning which thick walls Zed can and can't pass dramatically increases your chance of escaping collapses, catching fleeing targets, choosing the right chase angle. In real games, this can be the difference between securing a kill or dying for it. Spend time learning key walls. It's a small investment with massive payoff. Most players don't realize Zed doesn't lose R if the kill happens. If your target dies before deathmark finishes, Zed's ultimate is refunded. You don't waste R if the kill happens early. Most Zed players burn W just to save a second. When clearing waves, use E whenever possible. Using W for wave clear is faster but risky. Unless you're completely safe, hold W and clear with positioning and E instead. Small habit, big difference. This is one of the most underrated power spikes Zed can get in a game. Even though Zed doesn't use mana, blue buff is insanely valuable. The cooldown reduction and regeneration let you throw out far more Qs and Es and Ws without hesitation, which massively increases your pressure and wave control and uptime across fights and skirmishes. In practice, it often gives more real value than a small item component, simply because it lets you play faster and more often. Whenever it's available, look to take blue buff. If your jungler has already cleared it, if it's uncontested, or if it's free on the map, prioritize grabbing it. On Zed, blue buff isn't a luxury, it's one of the strongest resources you can get. Zed is a high pressure assassin who thrives on mistakes rather than extended lane control. No matter the matchup, your baseline win condition is the same. Stay healthy, manage the wave, and look for clean kill windows. You don't need to force early kills. Zed's real power comes from level 6, side pressure, and mid-game picks. Against immobile or low threat champions, Zed can play aggressively and control the pace of the lane. Use the Q to farm safely early, then look to pressure with W once you have all 3 abilities. These lanes give you freedom. You can push, threaten roams, and punish poor positioning. Even here, discipline matters. You don't need to force all-ins. Repeated pressure and health advantages naturally create kill windows. Most matchups come down to spacing, cooldown tracking, and patience. Trade around your shadows, take short and controlled exchanges, and avoid committing unless you know key abilities are down. Wave management is critical. A bad wave can turn a winning trade into a losing fight. Winning these lanes isn't about flashy outplays. It's about waiting for the right moment and executing cleanly. Tanky champions, heavy crowd control, or strong defensive tools can shut Zed down quickly. If you mismanage your shadow or commit at the wrong time, these champions will punish you immediately. In these lanes, survival comes first. Farm safely with Q, hold W defensively to escape ganks or pressure, and avoid extended trades and forced all-ins. If the lane feels unplayable, don't fight it head on. Let the wave come to you, minimize losses, and play for side lanes and mid-game. Zed can still take over games without winning lane. Zed doesn't need to dominate lane to be effective. If you reach mid-game with good farm and cooldown awareness, the map opens up. And that's where Zed does his best work. Zed is not just a mid laner. He's a fully viable jungle pick, and most of what you've learnt in this guide transfers directly. Your mechanics, shadow usage, target selection, and mid-game decision making all apply the same way. Zed jungle is a tempo-based assassin, not a full clear farmer. Your main goals are to clear efficiently to reach level 6, look for isolated targets in volatile lanes, and snowball through picks and pressure, not front to back fights. You don't need to spam ganks early. Hitting level 6 cleanly is the first real power spike. For jungle, I only recommend 2 keystones, Conqueror for duels and First Strike for everything else. All the builds still apply, just don't take Electrocute in the jungle. For jungle pets, Gustwalker Hatchling helps with mobility and repositioning, Scorchclaw Pup adds damage and slows for stronger skirmishes. Pick based on playstyle, mobility versus fight pressure. Zed clears once he has items, and many junglers' builds are similar to mid. Profane Hydra is unique to jungle and common for faster clears, and most people rush the active item first. Zed's ganks are about angles, not running straight at people. Approach from Frog of War or side lanes, use W first to cut off escapes, save R until the target commits flash or movement. Post 6, Zed becomes extremely dangerous in skirmishes. Even short trades often force summoners or kills. Zed excels in 2v2s and 3v3s around river. He can contest scuttle confidently, pick off greedy support and ADCs rotating late, and forces respect around objectives once ult is up. You don't need to solo major objectives early. Focus on pressure and picks, and then convert into dragons and herald with your team. Jungle Zed transitions the same way as mid Zed. Look for picks, apply side pressure, punish overextensions. The difference is you arrive from unexpected angles more often. If you're ahead, you can take over the map. If you're behind, you still threaten squishies and side lanes. If you already understand Zed mid, you're most of the way to understanding Zed jungle. The role changes, the mindset doesn't. Zed can work in the top lane, but only under the right conditions, and it's not where you should be learning the champion. Top lane Zed works best when your team already has a reliable frontline, ideally a tank in the jungle or support, and sometimes even mid. Without that, Zed top leaves your team too fragile and makes fights much harder to play out. He's also far more effective into squishier top laners. Against most bruisers, Zed runs into a fundamental problem. You can't reliably burst them, but you also can't afford to stay in melee range. Long, stat check trades heavily favor bruisers, and even small mistakes get punished hard. That said, everything you learn about mid-game Zed still applies. Wave control, side lane pressure, patience, and timing your commits. You can still take Ignite early for kill pressure, then complete your top lane mission to unlock teleport later, giving you flexibility without sacrificing early threat. Rune-wise, Conqueror is generally more viable in top lane since trades are longer and fights don't end instantly like they often do mid. Overall, Zed top is playable, but it's not recommended unless you already understand Zed's fundamentals. Mid lane is where Zed truly shines and where you should learn him first. Top lane is best treated as a situational option for experienced Zed players when the matchup, team composition, and damage balance all line up. That's everything you need to start winning on Zed. Not by forcing plays, but by controlling pressure, waiting for mistakes, and choosing the right moment to strike. If this helped, consider subscribing. I'm Zeus, and I'll see you in the next one.